last day of Life After College Week. Have you guys been to some other sessions?
Yeah.
Anybody have 3 already? Awesome. Pick up your leather portfolio today. Thanks for joining us for today's session, Are You LinkedIn? We have an additional session after this at 12:30, which is finding purpose in your work, finding meaning in your work. So anyway, I'd love to introduce Donnie Owens. He's here. He is a recruiter for Mod Pizza. We took a group of students out to Mod Pizza headquarters in Bellevue last fall, and I totally fell in love with this company. If you think it's just pizza, you're all wrong. Hopefully Donnie will talk a little bit about Mod. But he got his major in business administration with a marketing focus from the University of Albany. His first job, an account representative with LeGrant, which is an advertising and PR firm down in the LA area. He was raised in Southern California. Any people from SoCal? There you go, there's your peeps.
310.
And he found his passion for recruiting, working with Microsoft's University Recruiting Program team, and also on Amazon's Kindle organization. So he's got a wealth of experience. He uses LinkedIn all the time, every day, because he's a big-time recruiter, and he loves to help people build bridges. Make sure you take advantage of it. Chat to him for a few minutes after the session if you have. Donnie, thanks for being here. Take it away.
Thank you for having me. Hi, everybody. How are you? Welcome. How's your day going? Happy Friday. Could have been anywhere else in the world, right? But you're here with us. So thank you. I'm really grateful for the opportunity to talk to you all. Higher ed is super important to me. Linda mentioned that my first job was, Lori, mentioned that my first job was at LeGrant Communications in Southern California. I was at an ad agency, writing press release and advertorials and things like that, and I ended up really, really disliking it and scrambled my way back onto campus, where I was a student life leader for a little while at in the Austin Community College system, and then found my way onto Microsoft's university team. So my first job out of school was like, I couldn't wait to get back to school once I tasted the real world, so take advantage of the time that you guys have here. Again, to get the screen back on here, it's okay. You can.
I did that to you too.
So yeah, we'll go through the slides. I'm not going to necessarily read off of each one. There are times when some stats will pop up where I will kind of, that's a bad teaching technique, right? To read off the slides. You all are capable, you're in college, so I'm confident that you can read. But sometimes I will kind of divert there, but it should be a free-flowing presentation. If you guys have questions, there is a time at the end for Q&A, but please feel free. If there's something that just catches your attention and you want an answer right then and there, please raise your hand and I'll be happy to address it right then. Anybody use LinkedIn? Familiar with it yet? All right. Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat? See more hands now, right? So it's obviously those are some social media or social networking sites. LinkedIn is a professional networking site. So we're titling this presentation, Are You LinkedIn? Understanding and Leveraging the World's Largest Professional Network. Told you a little bit about me, but let's talk more. I'm Donnie Owens, senior recruiter at Mod Pizza. Hopefully that title is changing really soon. Not to pat myself on the back, but I'm in line for a recruiting manager role there, and I'm just, really happy I get a chance to help develop some of the other recruiters, and I just think the world of them and the work that they do. So I'm really excited to get a chance to share what I know with them and see them kind of grow in that space and hopefully have continued success. There's my mod graphic. I'm a Jeopardy and trivia nerd. It's like one of my favorite pastimes. I will put my skills up against anyone if you ever want to test. Also a fantasy football fiend. And I got my little shark with wings and fire going out there. Music and sports enthusiast. Don't hate me, I'm a Raiders fan. I am from LA, so sorry, I expected some booze there. Tinkerer and out-of-the-box thinker. I call see what I did there with the out-of-the-box? It's not even in the slide. So I call myself that because I've made my own board game. It's actually called Welcome to College. It's not on the market or anything, and it's prototyped. I made an improvement on how to dispense hand sanitizer. Anyway, I just see things and I run with it sometimes. What I'll do with them, I don't know. Family first, that's my beautiful family there. And I have 863 LinkedIn connections. That seems super random, right? But it's a good segue into our next slide. So what is LinkedIn? LinkedIn is the world's largest professional network. There are 433 million registered LinkedIn users. 2 new members join each and every second. These numbers come from 2016 data, which was about August is when they ran these reports. So some of these may have fluctuated a little bit. Each month, 106 million unique users visit, 200 countries and territories. 70% of the users here in the US. Having a professional LinkedIn photo makes your profile 14 times more likely to be viewed. The most overused word continues to be motivated. There are 39 million students or recent graduates on LinkedIn, so hopefully you will add to that total pretty soon as you hopefully see some of the value in it and how it's used on both the job seekers end and the recruiters end. 60% of their revenue comes from talent solutions, 20% coming from marketing solutions, and 20% from premium subscriptions. I'll break that down what that means a little bit. Talent solutions are essentially kind of what myself and other folks in my industry use or leverage to find talent. So there are Recruiter Corporate, Recruiter Lite. Those are different suites that give you much more access to a broad network, allows you to send direct messages versus having to already be connected with an individual, and just really helps you kind of bridge those connections and let them know what you're about, what you're seeking, what you saw on their profile that was attractive to you, and hopefully start a conversation and either pry them away from their current company and into whatever one I'm recruiting for, or if they're out of work, finding a great landing place for them. The marketing solutions are more around branding. They have a team, a dedicated team, I should say teams, plural, that really will take your brand, learn about it, become super immersive, and try to broadcast that on LinkedIn. Every company should have a company page where folks can go learn about amount of employees, corporate culture, and LinkedIn's marketing solutions team really just focus on how to make that message pop and resonate with its users. And then the premium subscriptions, that number may change soon. I was speaking with Karen about this. LinkedIn is undergoing some changes. Some folks who have it may have started to see some of the changes. They aren't asking if you want to switch over to this model. They're just doing it, kind of forcing it on folks to kind of pay for different accesses. So different tiers or levels of profiles give you more access. It's unfortunate. It used to be pretty much almost exclusively free service, but I think just because of their goals and revenue streams, they're needing to make some more money and get creative in how they do that, and that's one way it seems to be that they're addressing that. Microsoft just recently paid $26.2 billion for LinkedIn. They just basically gobbled up a ton of users by doing so. They paid about 150% of what the stock price was just to kind of make the sale a kind of a no-brainer, an offer they couldn't refuse essentially. For a long time, LinkedIn's leaders said that they were going to maintain their independence, but they haven't. So why are we here? Network. I pulled the formal definition of network, but I should back up from that slide. Anybody want to tell me what you think of when you hear that, when you hear network or networking? Anybody?
Definitely, we should walking around a room and meeting people. That's just the image that pops into mind immediately.
Okay. Anyone else? All right. I'll talk more. So the first definition, and again, we use network in the noun form and as a verb. So as a noun, it's an arrangement of intersecting horizontal and vertical lines, and that can be anything. That could be a spider web as a network. But again, you could start to map out in your head what that might look like when it comes to people. Or the second definition is a group or system of interconnected people or things, which is more kind of what we're dealing with here. Networking is simply making those connections happen. They can be informal, they can be super in-depth, but any chance you get to interface with someone and it kind of takes on a personal interest, professional interest, you're building your network when you're doing that. You could build a snowboarding network, if you will. I'm sure you guys belong to different either groups or maybe even campus groups. So you can imagine like how you went about going about that. rush events, if any of you are in fraternities or sorority. I don't know if you guys have that on this campus. All right, maybe not. But anyway, that's one example of networking. So much depends on your reputation. Guard it with your life. That's from Robert Greene. It's the 5th law in the 48 laws of power. Don't go get that book. There are mixed reviews about it, but I did feel that that particular law was relevant to what we're talking about here today. It's your professional reputation, if you will. There's more to it, but it's a huge piece of it, especially when you're thinking about recruiters or hiring managers actually viewing you. They're taking that, they're looking at that and really determining and making judgments, if you will, off of your profile. So it's very important to maintain it and just be conscious of what message you're conveying. Words always traveled fast, but LinkedIn accelerates that travel time, obviously, because it's a click away. What does your profile say about you and your reputation? Just some things to be mindful of as you're building it, and we'll talk about how we build that in just a second. Styling and profiling. Sorry, I'm a basketball nerd, and I'll date myself too. Walt Frazier was an amazing guard for the New York Knicks, and he has like a very colorful way of commentating. So you'll see some corniness throughout this presentation, and we'll start there with that one. So keep in mind, your LinkedIn profile is not your resume. It's so much more than that. Your resume is a piece of paper. It's pretty lifeless. It's important. You have to have one. So I don't want to diminish the importance of that, but think of your LinkedIn profile as something separate. You can upload a resume into LinkedIn, but it's much more robust than that. It's personal, it's intimate. You have the ability, of course, to put a photo of yourself there. Folks can make recommendations who you've either worked with in a past life or that you just know in your network. They can endorse some of your skill sets. They can go on and actually leave a written endorsement for you. So again, much more intimate. You can imagine the value that that has if a former employer or a former manager is saying wonderful things about you, and that's sitting there. It goes a lot further than just listing a skill set and having a hiring manager read that and wonder kind of, okay, well, who are they actually? How do they work? Yes, they did these things, and here are some quantifiable numbers, but tell me more about you. And LinkedIn is a good opportunity to do that. So birds of a feather flock together. It's not what you know, it's who you know. Get in where you fit in. Did I miss any dumb cliches? They're not, all right. So again, that's kind of the mentality that a recruiter or a hiring manager is going to go into looking at your profile. Everything matters. Keep that in mind as well. So in addition to your skills, your experience, what folks are saying about you, you're going to start to see your clusters. To whom are you connected? That's going to matter, for better or for worse sometimes. We've seen folks, they know. I'll give a couple examples in my world. At Mod, recently had a very, very, very talented construction manager candidate that I found on LinkedIn, and I was just ready to run and bring him over to the hiring managers, and I saw that he knew a few people that worked at my company, at Mod. So I was like, all right, let me leverage those connections. So I went and talked to them, and they were like, please do not send him to us. So they had the ability to speak to just, I guess, some things about his leadership style and kind of circumventing the chain of command, if you will, and it just wasn't a great fit. So while it can be a great thing when you have great connections, it can also ding you. So definitely be mindful of your reputation and who you're connecting out there, and also how your work performance is going to translate into that larger atmosphere. So getting started. It's the Black Eyed Peas. Let's get it started. No, all right. If you set up a Facebook or an Instagram account or Snapchat, you can set up a LinkedIn profile. It's very intuitive, it's user-friendly. We'll walk you right through it. If you go to set one up, it should prompt you along the way. So pretty easy there. Don't reinvent the wheel. Look around at profiles that you like, explore some. You don't have to necessarily have a profile to see other people's profiles. So if you have a specific industry you're targeting, or you just know of someone, a family friend that's super successful, go on their LinkedIn page, see what they're doing, see what people are saying about them, see how they've structured their summary, their introduction, and borrow from that. Don't plagiarize. of course. You guys are familiar with that, I'm sure, or unfamiliar, hopefully. So no need to try to rack your brain and really oh, I wonder what I should say. Or use the resources that are available and out there for you. Use a good and appropriate picture. I'll emphasize appropriate. It's LinkedIn, not Tinder, or so just be mindful of that. You'd be surprised. Some folks, I don't think they always are mindful of separating out everything, and they're like, oh, this is a great picture of me. It's like, yeah, but not for this space. And it matters, hopefully we're progressing as a society. We're in a very progressive area here and even at Mod, where if any of you have ever been to our stores or are familiar with our culture, we're a come as you are sort of company. We have folks who have decorated past, felonies on their records, and people who have been vice presidents and principal managers at their organization. So it really runs the spectrum. Some really talented leaders there with exposed tattoos, funky hairstyles. So there is some leniency around stuff like that. But again, just be mindful. I think we can all use good judgment around what we know to be appropriate and what isn't. So, let's check out mine. So that's me. You guys saw that picture. Oh, let me go back. So my summary is pretty wordy. It doesn't have to be that long. It can be a few sentences. One of the good opportunities, and I'll touch on this in a bit, you really get to tell your story with LinkedIn. Again, I go back to that resume piece, and it is functional and necessary, but again, it's just a piece of paper. It doesn't tell the whole story. Neither will LinkedIn, but it does give you another opportunity to tell more about yourself. Gaps in employment, why you're making a shift in industry. For myself, I kicked, scratched, and clawed. This was before LinkedIn was as popular, but it was hard for me to get into the higher ed world as a professional because my background was in business and marketing. So it was more of a challenge to really try to convey that message and really, really push hard. This gives you a much easier path toward doing so. You guys may maybe not have experienced this yet, but family members or folks who have been in the workforce for quite a bit can probably speak to that. A number of things can happen. You can go back to school and totally shift gears, and again, it gives you the platform to sort of explain that, which is important. Sometimes if a recruiter is skimming through resumes quickly, hopefully they're still being thorough, but that might be something where they would normally put a strike against you, like, oh, there's this huge employment gap, or they haven't worked for a year. If we're seeing that just on a resume, or if nothing is in that summary section. So while it might seem mundane to you, or like, oh, it's kind of obvious what happened, don't take that for granted. Don't assume that. Use that opportunity to really convey the message you want to convey. You have that opportunity, so take advantage of it. You don't want anyone to make your story for you. Control that message. So, nothing too extravagant, but definitely important to list your skills, your education. Any volunteer experience can go there as well. Extracurricular type things all speak to who you are. Build your network. Connect. I was reluctant, just personally, when I first got LinkedIn, very reluctant to accept people I didn't know or send connections to people I maybe looked at as some super high-level executive role. And I found that limited my network overall. Think of it again like the spiderweb connection, or like a ripple effect. The graphic here kind of illustrates that. So 6 degrees of separation, if you will. Bless you. Sorry. Connect. Send connections out there. LinkedIn will, if you don't know someone, it will prompt you to say, it will say, how do you know this person? Is it a colleague, former classmate? I call everyone my friend. I'm friendly, so but it allows you to bypass it. Sometimes if you put something like, oh, we're a colleague, it'll bring you to another screen and says, oh yeah, well, where'd you work with them? Or what's their email address? You're like, crap, I don't know that. Let's just call them a friend. And then they just let you bypass that, and then you're connected. So build the network. If you don't see the value in it right now, it may pay off later. Paths cross. Again, the ability to reach out to other folks within network. People only become in your network if you have some sort of degree of connection. So the more people you add, the more reach you have, even if you don't have a direct connection. So bombard people. It's kind of par for the course, so I think it should be expected. Be intentional when you can, when you're building your network, so that sort of shotgun approach can be effective for actually just building your network in numbers and kind of hoping some good comes out of it. If you want to be really, really targeted about to whom you're connecting, do that. There are ways to search on LinkedIn for companies, titles, skill sets, alum. So if you have something in mind, a specific industry you want to target, then you're definitely going to want to use those search tools on the website. And when you're sending that message, if you get a chance, when you're sending that connection, when you get a chance, send a message along with it. Say, hey, I really targeted you for these reasons. Something I'm realizing, let me go back. Something I'm realizing I didn't put in this slide, but I do want to talk about is to just not be scared or shy. Voice your opinion, or voice your wants, your desires to everyone you connect with. And that goes beyond LinkedIn. This is, to the next slide, in corny sayings. Squeaky wheel gets the oil, closed mouths don't get fed, the nail that sticks out gets the hammer. That one seems like violent, but what it's really saying is people are busy, sometimes they mean well, and unless you're knocking on their door, seemingly bothering them, oftentimes you may not get heard. So I just want to encourage everyone to kind of be bold in their search and in their connections. And I found in my experience, and I know just from myself as a recruiter, I thrive off of trying to help people land wherever they want to be. I get a personal satisfaction of that. I found that most recruiters do. That's often why they choose that path. There's a certain level of satisfaction. There's some competition involved in that, and it's very gratifying when you can hear someone say, like, oh my gosh, you helped me get here. You guys do all the heavy lifting, but it's nice to be that support and bridge those connections. So it's expected in the industry. Don't feel like you're bugging people. Just eliminate that from your thinking. You're here. When you're using tools like this, it's for your own benefit. And back to my corny sayings, the squeaky wheel gets the oil. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. It's so pretty. What should you be looking for? Ideal companies and organizations to where you maybe see yourself contributing. It may be a fast casual pizza chain that does really good community work, and you're like, I want to know more. So there are definitely ways to research the company, see who works there, look at their work histories. If you see folks that are in a role or at a company that you like, or if they're in a position that's kind of far away from your reach at the time, look at their career path and try to see what route they followed. Engage them. Ask for mentorship if you can, if you get that opportunity. Again, I'm kind of weaving some of just networking in general into the actual LinkedIn, but it does give you that platform to do that. Alumni, mentors, roles you covet, and common connections. All things you should always be focusing on from your end as the job seeker. What recruiters and hiring managers are looking for. Relevant work history or skills, a story to tell, reading between the lines, and also common connections. That reading between the lines piece, I talked about it a little bit earlier. We will look to piece together a story if you haven't provided one for us. I've seen resumes or LinkedIn profiles where it's very obvious, and it's nice to be able to go and tell those stories, where you might see somebody that's in real estate for 15 years, and then they go away and they're working in project management for 2 years, and then they apply to a real estate job. It's kind of easy to see that they tried something new. They want to go back to where they're more comfortable and kind of where their bread is buttered. So it's nice to be able to go to a hiring manager and say, hey, I know this person has been out of the industry for 2 or 3 years, but if you really look beyond this most recent job, they have extensive history, been high performers wherever they were. So again, that's what we're looking at. And I think that's really helpful to you as the job seeker to kind of understand what a recruiter is looking for. That picture will, if it's inappropriate or funny, will get shared amongst other recruiters. If there are misspellings, I hope there aren't any in here. I've proofread before I put it together. But if there are misspellings or just something wild and crazy, it will get shared, laughed at, and that's not good. You know, I guess it's a way to keep things light in the recruiting world. But at the end of the day, it's somebody is putting forth their effort to get a job. So it's very important that you're paying attention to detail and understanding the message that you're conveying, because if it's off a little bit, while it may get mocked and ridiculed, ultimately what it does is it doesn't net you the job that you were seeking. So that stuff matters. So maintenance, very important to do. Continually update your profile. Don't build your profile and then abandon it. That's happened a lot. In addition to the inappropriate pictures or pictures that aren't necessarily professional or semi-professional, you don't need to be like with some backdrop in a shirt and tie or in a business suit. As you saw mine, I'm in like a thermal sweatshirt, but in an office environment. So I don't want to harp on that too much, but you should have one when there isn't one. Some folks will do that often. For whatever reason, it just raises a concern. It's like, are they trying to not show themselves because they feel like they are whatever they feel? But it leads us to speculate. I know I've had some folks who have had very, very extensive work history with no picture. And in my mind, what I think is like, oh, they don't want me to think that they're overqualified or too senior for the position. I mean senior in terms of like experience, but if they feel like they look that part, they might not put the picture. And again, you want to convey confidence, assuredness, and again, you don't want to raise questions where there shouldn't be any. So I found that in my world and folks I work with, nobody's like saying, unless it's something like crazy going on in the picture, if it's just a standard one, we're not eliminating or pushing people forward based on that. So put one. Don't just have the little gray outline of a human. As you gain new experiences, add them. It's like a resume. You'll probably hear this a lot, or may have heard this already in some of the sessions you've attended or just in your experience, to always update your resume. You never know who's out there looking at it. You never know what potentially you missed by not having it updated. There's a way to turn on and off your updates on LinkedIn. So if you are at an employer and you're gainfully employed and super happy, but you just want to update your profile, if you have that notification on, your whole network will see like, hey, Donnie just changed all this stuff. And that could potentially send a sign to your employer that, are they looking to leave? Like, why are they getting ramped up? Why are they making themselves look even better than they already do right now? So that might not be the case. It might just be a matter of maintenance. But if you have that concern, turn that notification off. If you are looking and adding some skills and you want people to see that, of course you want that on, and you want to kind of ring that bell as loudly as you can. Am I moving too fast? Slow? Good pace? Any questions so far? All right. Ask for recommendations. LinkedIn does have the ability to highlight recommendations. So if you've worked with someone, you've had an advisor, or just someone that knows you, family friend that can speak to you, either your character and how it relates to the working world, ask for that. Again, I go back to that, the squeaky wheel gets the oil, corny saying that I put up there. Folks are happy to do it, but you need to ask them. You have to take ownership of the entire process when you're out there job seeking. Not only does it help you and empower you, but there's something to be said for somebody that's properly walks the line of being pushy. I had a guy who was he had applied to a digital marketing manager role at Mod, and we had some really, really strong candidates, so he was sort of in the maybe pile. He showed up to the support center with his resume in a Mod pizza box. And I was like, all right, got to give the guy props. Let's push him through. And then we interviewed him. We really liked him. Ultimately, he didn't get the role. Someone did beat him out for the role, but it came down to he and that other individual. And everyone on that marketing team, myself included, are still actively engaged with him, and we see a landing spot for him. It's just a matter of making that fit. So I know we're talking about technology and the wave of the future, and when it comes to networking and using these tools, but there's still something to be said for the good old-fashioned in-person, face-to-face, hi, shake hands, look someone in the eye. So don't ever undervalue that. But again, that goes kind of ties into the asking for recommendations piece. If you feel like you have positive relationships, you know you've been a high-level performer or key contributor to whatever organization. It can be a volunteer organization, a student group. And if there is a leader there that can speak to those things, please ask them. It's only going to help you. And again, I think personally, it's enriching when you do that. You feel like you're helping out someone, and there's value in that. So you might be doing them a favor too. Join groups. LinkedIn does have that opportunity based on interest or skill sets. You know, you might join like a software developers group or I don't know, I'm just pulling jobs out of my head. Alumni groups as well. Publish posts and status updates. If you experience something or have extensive knowledge in a particular area or learn something new about networking, interviewing, onboarding someone, that's something that you can actually write a pretty extensive post on, and you can publish it with yourself as the author. That can get shared around, and again, that's sort of the more views and readers you have on that, again, speaks sort of to your skill set. I don't know that anyone's ever netted a job. Oh my God, somebody wrote this awesome publication. Like we gotta hire them. But still, just nice to keep yourself out there. All right, so we'll talk about some of the expectations and usage. Establish your professional profile and control of one of the top search results for your name. That's a big one. If you just Google yourself right now, well, maybe not, because a lot of you didn't raise your hand for having a LinkedIn profile, but I can very often just put a candidate's name into Google, and usually Facebook or LinkedIn is one of the top 2 results. So important to maintain control and over that profile, as it is getting seen. Build and maintain your professional network, find and reconnect with your colleagues and classmates, learn about other companies, get industry insights, find other professionals, share your thoughts, tap into your network, discover new career opportunities by searching for jobs. How many of you have already done internships? Do you have recommendations from those? All right, you should get them. Mm-hmm. Sure.
How would you recommend going on about, a lot of companies don't provide formal recommendations, they're only allowed to say, oh, she worked here from this state to this state. Mm-hmm. Do you have any suggestions for kind of navigating that issue?
I guess that's going to vary company to company and what policies they have around that. LinkedIn, as far as I know, to do it on LinkedIn, it's more just, hey, this is me as an individual speaking on behalf of this other individual. Now, if they were to write a formal recommendation to another hiring manager or to another company specifically, that's probably where they may have more limitations on what they can say or how deep they can dive into knowing you or your experience. But I think on LinkedIn, I think you're safe because there is that personal connection. But that'll, of course, lie with how comfortable the person is giving the recommendation. Yeah. Did I answer that well enough? All right, cool. Any other questions right now? No? Yes?
As a student, do you recommend putting an industry in a profile?
It depends what your goal is at the end of it. If that's the industry that you hands down know that you're going to target and won't take no for an answer, you will end up there, then yes. Be bullish about it. Don't get discouraged or feel like, oh, I'm not getting enough profile views. Like, is it this industry specific thing? Like, no, work at it, build your network, but it doesn't hurt you at all. There are groups typically around certain industries, again, that can kind of speak to your interests. If you're finding cool articles about anything relative to your industry, share that on LinkedIn. The more, if you generate likes that way, maybe someone sees your name and says, hey, I always see Karen. I just made up a name for you. I always see Karen posting about this stuff. Sorry, that was probably because you're right behind her. See how the brain works? Definitely, I don't think it would hurt you at all. Again, if you're more open to landing in different industries, that might pigeonhole you. Where if you're really just talking about, that's happened plenty of times where someone's applied to a role and then I read their resume and I read their summary about themselves. This is where the maintenance piece comes in. Somebody that's applying to an IT role and then I'm reading about how they just love digital marketing. And it's like, but you're applying to a systems administrator. Like, why do you? I don't think you'll be happy in this role. You might, but you just didn't change your summary to convey that. Because whenever you made, I'm saying you, I don't mean you. Whenever you made that was what your focus was. So just be mindful of that. That if you don't maintain it, or if you're the idea of where you'd like to land changes, make sure you're keeping up with that. Oh, Q&A. Look at that. Hey, Karen.
I'm just curious from the recruiter side of the table, like, how do you go about looking at LinkedIn when you're looking for a candidate?
So, folks who don't apply to your job, let's say I'm in my role, I post a brand new job and I blast it out on Indeed, LinkedIn, our internal site, and I'm just not getting any applicants to that role. If folks aren't applying, we call those passive candidates. If someone is applying, that's obviously an active candidate. So passive candidates, I'll typically start my search with the job itself or somebody with a similar title. Construction manager, superintendent. So I'll throw in maybe 2 or 3 keywords. Boolean search that's probably something I should have talked about earlier. It's a way of looking for people, and you could do it on Google, LinkedIn, a number of different sites or websites where you can use Boolean logic. And it's just a grouping of keywords, and it had to be in properly syntaxed. The way these services work now, they're so smart, you could just do keywords, just very simply. Like, you don't have to do these parentheses and capital letters here, which probably sounds like I'm speaking a foreign language right now, but that's what it used to feel like when that was a big thing in recruiting. Now much more intuitive with the keywords. So I'll start with those keywords. I'll look at titles or relative titles, then I'll next go to area, location. Relocating a candidate can be expensive, so if you are targeting a company sorry, I'm segueing a little bit, but I'll jump back. When you are targeting a company, if they're out of the area, keep in mind that not every job is going to have relocation associated with it. If you're already planning to move to that area, use LinkedIn or use your outreach to convey that. Some folks might just eliminate you, just say, oh, this job is in Colorado, they live in Seattle, why would I consider them? But you already have plans to move to Colorado, but they don't know that unless you're conveying that. So I'll start there, job title, area, and then I'll start to build in some, depending on what the search results. So if that gives me like 2,000 candidates that just have that title and area, I'm like, oh, that's way too many to sift through. So then I'll start to narrow it down by skills, former companies, so industry relative. So I find at Mod, I'm looking for a lot of Starbucks folks, a lot of Qdoba, For whatever reason, Outerwall, which is the parent company of Redbox and Coinstar, is like, it's like a running joke now that we were like, like that they are taking over Mod. We have about 8 folks that were formerly there. So I'll look primarily at job title, relative skills, and location in previous companies. That's a big one.
So that would follow that important things for people to be aware of is what they're listing as job titles and skills. Is that what the second thing you said?
Absolutely, yes. So, and you can add that in your skill set. So if you have a job title listed, from your previous experience in the skills section, you can go and like highlight or add to your profile other keywords or other relative job titles so that when someone is searching for you, you populate their results. Yeah. Yes, in the back.
So I was wondering, you were mentioning things about like you can publish certain types of posts and like status updates. So it's obviously not Facebook. So you're not going to want to post certain things, but like what kinds of things do you as a recruiter look for in like those types of posts?
For sure. So sometimes big announcements, if there's a new, at Mod, I'll speak to that a little bit. If there's a new, we're expanding into a new market, that might be something I'm really sharing out there. Or if someone gets a promotion, or if our CEO appears on Mad Money with Jim Cramer, that's something that you might share out. So industry-specific things. Folks that, this is from the recruiter side, when I'm sharing those things, I'm hoping that other people in the industry are like, wow, what's going on at Mod? Folks who might potentially come work for us, who are like, wow, they're doing really great things. I keep seeing them in the news. I keep seeing them in my LinkedIn feed. What's going on over there? Then they start to look more. They see me post it. Maybe they look into my profile. Maybe they send me a connection. And because you can't target everyone. You'd like to, but sometimes you're going to have to just hope folks find you too. But yeah, industry-specific things, new technologies, changes are always a big one. I don't know if it was a LinkedIn share, but Karen actually shared with me about some of those LinkedIn changes around the subscription services, and that's something that people are going to want to know. I don't know if LinkedIn would be happy about blasting that out there, but that's very relevant information at large. Other questions out there?
I have a question about under the name. Is it headline? Is that what that next thing is called, or under your name? It's kind of like job title, but I'm thinking for students, what should they write? Do they write student, or what would you recommend?
I would look at it in almost like fill in the blanks. So say who you are, but also what you want to do. I'm a student at SPU, this major. My ideal landing spot within the next 2, 3 months, 6 months, whatever, is going to be here so I can contribute in this way. Concise, call it out, but also call out your destination. Yes?
I made an account like last hour, and if you say that you're a student, then it gives you like a different outline for like your heading.
So it prompts you
It
otherwise.
gives you the choice of like picking your school and yeah.
And does it also give you the choice to add what he was saying, like where you want to end up?
Yeah. Lower like the education section.
In the summary section, it might be somewhere you might want to throw that in there. It gets used a ton. LinkedIn is, and I only see it growing. Especially with the Microsoft acquisition, I imagine there's going to be a full court press to capture any and everybody. Kind of like, data and people are valuable. Sometimes, I know we've heard if something is free, I forgot how it goes, but basically, you're the product. We think of Facebook and those types of things are free, but there's some value in having your data and information there, and so it's going to grow because I'm sure they want that. Let's go in the back first, and then you.
Could you elaborate a little bit on the tiers that they're creating and what you mean by they're going to start charging different customers for different tiers?
Right, so essentially just saying, hey, if you pay $20 a month, I'm just pulling out those numbers randomly, but if you pay $20 a month, then you can send 30 connections. If you pay $30 a month, you can send 100 connections. So it might limit your ability, where I was harping on connect. I think they're starting to tighten up on the ability to just kind of blast that out there like that and making it come at a premium, which is unfortunate because that's not its roots, and nor do I think it was LinkedIn's original mission, but things change. So yeah, so that's more, just access is what they're going to charge you for. So the ability to send X amount of emails per month and things like that. Here and then in the back, yes.
So this is more like a work experience. Do you look at like, is there such a thing as having too many jobs? Like, should I limit, like, because I've had a lot of like, oh, very so, like, more like, I don't know, like not in my career jobs.
Well, so that can change. So when you're brand new in the job hunt and you don't have a ton of experience, you're going to want to list that. As you progress in your career, some of those will be less relevant. I don't necessarily include my experience at LeGrant Communications always, especially I've kind of identified that I want to stay in the recruiting world for good, and until one of my little Tinker board game things take off. No. Yeah, so I've eliminated those things only because I just think it sends a message of like why are you telling me this? Again, you want to tell your story, and the more tailored it can be when it's necessary is going to do well, but it's not a bad thing. Hopefully recruiters, hiring managers are being judicious and looking at things in proper context. So if they see that you're a super recent grad, hopefully there's not the expectation that you have some like super crazy elaborate work history, but the skills are going to be more important there. So if the job was a barista, you didn't just make coffee. You're probably tracking your profits and losses, your your high-level customer service engagement, retention, customer loyalty, things like that are ways to pull out what you are actually doing that are transferable. So yeah, at a point in time, it becomes, you do have to shift from putting everything, but early on in the search, not too much. Yes, hi.
I keep getting alerts about like LinkedIn Learning, and they send me a lot of emails about that. I was just wondering if you could explain what that is a little bit more in detail.
So they'll host a number of different webinars or just learning opportunities for anyone. It might be job seekers, it might be folks that are looking for candidates, and just around ways to be better about that. Kind of similar to what hopefully we're doing today, and hopefully you guys are gaining some, even if it's a little bit out of today. So yeah, just ways to improve and get better. So let's see, leveraging the company where you already are. They might do a whole webinar around that and talking about different ways to go out within your company and to get their network involved and looking at, I don't know how specific, that module would work, but it could be a number of different training opportunities. And ways to make your search more efficient, more targeted, ways to get noticed. It's like what are this like fake news kind of things that populate news feeds, like BuzzFeed, like check out the top 10 ways to get to get a date or whatever. Like it's kind of like that, like, ooh, top 10 ways to get your resume noticed. And sometimes they just repackage the same sort of stuff. But yeah, that's typically what that's about. Anybody? I'm so comfortable on this stool. Don't feel pressure either to ask.
As I'm putting in my job history, how in-depth of description should I go into?
A good recruiter is going to have a really trained eye. So concise is probably better, but still conveying everything you did. Sometimes if things can get too wordy or too verbose, you might feel like, again, kind of like, I don't need to read all that. Like, let's get to the meat and potatoes of what was really going on there. So if it's relevant and it's things that you're proud of and are going to are relevant to maybe a job you're looking for, or one that you hope people notice you for, by all means put it. I don't want to act like I have the exact prescription or remedy for any of these things. So everything has to be kind of looked at on a case-by-case basis. So for one job you might apply to, it might make sense to have a super thorough, but if you target another company where for whatever reason, it's maybe a different role, maybe it makes sense to taper some of that back. So yeah, being intentional, really targeting, doing as much intel or gathering as you can about, I'm sorry, that's so bad. I could have sworn I silenced that. Doing as much intel as you can about the job itself, and you can tailor your resume or your profile to sort of match that. Keywords are huge, so if you can put keywords in you might be saying the same thing that the job description is asking for, but if you actually take the exact language and put it into your experience, it's going to just be a quicker match. Sometimes I've had roles where I might go through over 100 resumes in a day, and just for the sake of efficiency, I'm not reading every single bullet point on there. I really wanted, I feel like I've trained my eye to kind of see what I'm looking for. You can miss things that way, but concise, matching keywords is definitely a plus in my book. So, yes.
What does a good summary look like? Because I'm assuming it excludes like work history and stuff. So I guess what does it include?
Well, it's your chance to really, it's almost your interview before the interview. Most interviews start with that classic, tell me about yourself. So that should be your answer, to tell me about yourself, as it relates to the professional world. You know what I mean? You don't want to go too much in depth. I'm like, I have 2 dogs and a cat, and their names are... don't do in my profile that was in the Life After College. I don't know what I was thinking when I submitted that to Karen. I put the first line. I was like, I'm humbly proud or proudly humbled to be a member of the human race. I was like, God, that's corny. Why does? It's the way. It's like, can you be humbly and proud, or which one goes first? So that's. And then I read it later, and I was like, that was so dumb. Like I shouldn't have done that. So there you go. There's one not to do. Just a chance to tell your story. Think of it in that way. This is my first interview question where I'm being asked, tell me about yourself. And when you can, tie it in. It's not like a resume where you're sending out each one direct. So too much change if the notifications are on LinkedIn might look weird. If they're off, that's probably fine to change it if you're actively applying to jobs. So it's going to it's always going to work 2 ways. You might just have your profile sitting there and someone may come along and find you. So you got to be mindful of what they're going to see when they engage that search. I've been in a role where I've been super happy and I haven't updated things. Now that I know I'm potentially in line for a promotion, I just recently updated it. I was like, oh crap, I'm going to have something to put over this job now. Like that one should have more under it. So, yeah. Yes.
Just wondering about the updating. If you're applying to a lot of jobs because you're looking for work, if you apply to one and have like the summary reading, like you apply to that one, can you change it before you know they looked at it?
It should tell you. So it depends how the recruiter is what suite they're working in. So if they're just working off of their own profile, you'll get alerted to when someone's viewing you. If they're in the Recruiter Lite or Recruiter Corporate seat, which is just the title of the service itself, and that's kind of to the way they make employers pay for subscriptions is kind of what they're now, I think, passing on to the user on a much smaller scale in terms of dollars and cents. But the Recruiter Lite seat gives you limited access. The Recruiter Corporate costs like $23,000 a year, I think, but basically gives you unlimited access. So that if I was looking at your resume in one of those suites, you wouldn't be able to tell that I viewed it. So it's a little, I don't want to say risky, but yeah, and you can be generic if you know you are kind of, casting a pretty wide net. You can be generic in that and find ways, or even make a connection with someone in the company and say, hey, I applied via LinkedIn. My profile reads really generic, but I just wanted to say, I wanted to add this to the mix. Any companies that you're targeting, when you look at their company page, it should give you a whole list of who's there, or at least who's following the company that it's actually working there. So that's a good way to kind of connect with folks and reach out there. All right, I totally thought I was going to be super short, and I talk a lot, and I think I'm right up against it, you guys. So.
Are you willing to stay a few minutes if you want to come up and ask individual questions?
Absolutely.
Well, thank you, Donnie, for coming out with us.
No. Thank
Oh,
you.
sorry.
No, thank you. Thank you, SPU students, alumni, faculty, Karen, very much, and of course my employer for letting me skip out on work this morning to come over here. So, and that's me. That's me and my daughter rocking my mod sweatshirt and my Raiders hat.